Hello everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of Surrounded by Bourbon with me, Phil Crawford, aka Causeway Whiskey. This is episode 26 and today we are looking at this Pinhook Vertical Series 9-year-old straight bourbon whiskey. So you may notice that I didn't say that it was a Kentucky straight bourbon. No, this is a straight bourbon whiskey that has come from Lawrenceburg Distilleries in Indiana, which is now MGP. And the brand Pinhook, for anybody that doesn't know, came into existence in 2011. It was the concept of three friends, Sean Joseph, who was a restaurateur and also a sommelier, very successful in that business. His friends Charles Fulford and Jay Peterson as well, and together they bought 20 casks from what is now MGP. They then moved those barrels to Kentucky, and while they were just checking in the barrels, seeing how they were maturing, how things were getting on, they realized that there was a bit of a correlation, I guess, between the maturation of whiskey and also how people look after horses in the horse racing industry. So the name Pinhook actually comes from the horse racing world, and it's a term where you buy a young foal and then nurture it into a champion. And so that's the correlation that these guys saw. They could see that you would buy barrels of whiskey and potentially mature them into something above and beyond what you'd actually bought. Now, interestingly, in 2017, they kind of stopped getting their whiskey from MGP because the Castle and Key distillery, Castle and Key restored production at the old Taylor distillery in Kentucky, and that is now where Pinhook get their custom mash bills distilled. And that is all done under the purview of Sean Josephs. So anyway, this is their source whiskey from MGP, and as far as I know, Pinhook always will have sourced product. I'm not sure that they have any plans to have their own distillery. So what can we say about what's in the bottle here? Well, this is 9 years old. ABV proof wise, it is 57.2% ABV or 114.3 proof. Interestingly, it does say on the bottle here that it is unfiltered. So I'm not sure if that is the same as meaning non-chill filtered. So it's probably just barrier filtered, where once they disgorge the barrel, they just have like a muslin or some sort of barrier filter that just makes sure that any of the charcoal and stuff that's inside the barrel doesn't get mixed in with the liquid. So that is good to know. And because it is bourbon, it is going to be natural coloured. So under the strict laws, you cannot add colouring or flavourings to your bourbon. Mashbill wise, this is 75% corn, it is 20.5% rye, so we're in high rye territory, and it's 4.5% malted barley, just to get those lovely enzymes to help the distillation process. Price wise, this wasn't particularly cheap. It was $93 retail, but by the time I paid taxes and shipping, it was $109. Which works out at £85.25 or €103.50. So kind of on the pricey side for a 9-year-old, I would say. So what's the concept of the Vertical series? So really it's an exploration of how whiskey matures. And so the guys at Pinhook are following a group of 1,350 barrels as they age from 4 years to 12 years. So the 10-year-old just came out this year, so it looks like we have another 2 releases to come. This is my first sort of dalliance with the Vertical series. I have tried their high proof bourbon before, which I really like. I have one behind me over here. I also have one of their Cast Strength Ryes, which is very nice as well. But yeah, so let's just see what we think of the Vertical series 9-year-old. And let's get into the nose. So the first thing I'm getting on the nose here is glass cherries, or glacé cherries, I don't know how you pronounce it. But think of those cherries that you use for cooking or baking. Then there's nougat, there's vanilla, there's caramel. Surprisingly, for being high rye, like the rye spice element doesn't really kick through very much. I mean, there is cinnamon. There's a bit of oak shavings. There's cream soda. There's foam banana sweets. But considering the proof, I feel like the nose is a little closed. Like it's not particularly layered. It's not giving out a huge amount of aroma. But we are going to add water because this is high ABV, so let's try the palate first without water, and then we'll add the water and see what we get. So I'm going to say, like, I'm surprised at the mouthfeel on this for something that's 9 years and kind of high proof, because it's not super oily. It's kind of on the finish side, so I wouldn't even say go so far to say this is a medium bodied. I don't think it is. It's a bit thin for me. Okay, let's go back to the arrival. So the brown sugar syrup, there's an element of black coffee in the background. There's also sweet cinnamon rolls, a hint of cherry cola. There's a little bit of like dried chili flake heat, not a huge amount. A little bit of rice spice, you know, the clove and the cinnamon. There's plenty of oak going on. So there's a little bit of astringency there, or enough astringency so that it's not overly cloyingly sweet. But development wise, I don't think it really develops much beyond that. So let's add a little bit of water and see where we go. Let's see now. And I will add a few drops here. It is high ABV, so I'll try not to ruin it. Give it a little bit of time. Okay, now with the water, the nose has definitely opened up a bit. So there's taffy, there's car polish now, there's marshmallow, and there's toasted coconut, very distinct coconut note off the nose. So I think the nose has definitely got better. A little more engaging. Palate wise, let's see. So palate wise, the only real extra thing I'm getting is a little bit of orange oil. but I think the palate has actually flattened with water. Like it's not quite as enjoyable with the water added. So before the water, the finish was pretty short, but now with the water, it is definitely short. Now we're getting finish-wise, there is a little bit of like the rye, spice and green herbal aspect, bit of pepper, a bit of clove. There's some dusty oak there. There's a bit of caramel. That's kind of that. So before I score this, I just want to read what's on the back of the bottle, where it says that this is the best, not the same whiskey every year. We blend and proof our whiskies in annual vintages, a unique approach that allows us to enhance the nuances of each year's barrels, which are naturally shaped by the barrel, mash bill, climate and storage environment. Rather than replicating flavour profiles, the traditional method, we craft the best, not the same, whiskey every year. Okay, with that thought in mind, and also with the rather high entry fee of $93, I'll exclude the taxes and all that sort of stuff right now. $93. I'm going to score this, and I think I'm actually being generous here right now. I'm going to give this a 5 out of 10. This really is a very average bourbon, and frankly a poor return on the outlay that I have paid. I have definitely had much better for less, and I've actually had much better Pinhooks than this. Honestly, the high proof bourbon and just the regular high proof bourbon, which I have behind me here, which is the pink, if you can see it, wax seal, it's $60, and to me is just better than this. I know there's going to be variation because this is a vertical series, and when I did a bit of diligence online and was checking out other people's reviews and things, it was a mixed bag. Some people liked it, some people didn't. That's the joy of whiskey, you know. This particular Pinhook is probably not for me. I also probably won't be chasing any more of the vertical series because I guess once bitten, twice shy. And I also think part of this is rightly or wrongly because this is a sourced liquid from MGP, and they are charging a very premium price. And part of the reason why I say this is because when you source whiskey, like I get it, you have startup costs like any business, but you don't have the same startup costs as someone who is actually distilling their own liquid. So you don't have construction outlay, you don't have for either a distillery or warehousing, you then don't have the maintenance outlay, the electricity outlay, the property taxes. You're going to have need for less staff because you're sourcing a whiskey. You're not actually, you don't need the people working in the warehouse, you don't need the distillers. You probably are sourcing barrels, but maybe not to the same extent as a distillery is. And that's kind of my line of reasoning why I think I'm being generous even giving this a 5. I mean, I've had interactions with Sean Josephs on Instagram just about pricing and different things, and I guess this review is probably not going to go down very well. But you know, I pay my money, I'm going to say my bit. And I'm going to do something unusual. I'm actually going to get out of the chair and pick up a couple of bottles of whiskey and to show why I think the price for this is just a little bit off. So this is bottle number 1, and then from behind me here I have something that I never thought I would ever buy. is a Macallan. So, Maker's Mark cask strength proudly says 7 years and 2 months, so not much younger than the Vertical series, and it was $34. And I know they're owned by a multinational, much the same as the Macallan, but I bought a Macallan 12-year-old, 110 proof, all sherry matured, and it was $115, so not massively more than this. But the thing is that these both come from their own distilleries with all the costs that surround that, and the marketing, the branding, all that sort of stuff. And that's why I find it hard to sort of get on board with the pricing of this Pinhook. Because, you know, Maker's Mark is... this is a premium whiskey. If you look at like how they market things, this is considered a premium or maybe even a super premium whiskey, even though it's $35. I happen to very much like Maker's Mark and what they put out. And I think the cask strength is unbelievable value for the money. But then we get to like the Macallan, which is seen to be like an ultra luxury brand, and yet it is only about $20 more than this. And it's 3 years older, and it's sherry cask matured, and sherry casks are a lot more expensive than virgin oak casks. I don't know. I just feel that the Pinhook is probably priced probably $20 too expensive. And even then at $70, I still think you would get something better like Wild Turkey Rare Breed, or I'm struggling to think here at the minute. But anyway, like I think Wild Turkey Rare Breed is a great example of something that costs $55, cask strength, and I mean even sticking with Wild Turkey, you could buy the Kentucky Spirit for $80. Anyway, no doubt I am going to get some hate and flack for doing that kind of comparison, but that's just, I just couldn't help thinking about that. I think the thing is that what it comes down is provenance, that both the Maker's Mark and the Macallan have provenance, and I have the same issues with some whiskies in Ireland that are sourced and they come from Great Northern Distillery. Great Northern Distillery is a great distillery, but it doesn't have the history of, say, like Bushmills or Middleton. But people will put out brands where they will charge the same price for a cask strength 6-year-old single malt against an 11-year-old Bushmill single malt that has the provenance, the history, all that sort of stuff. And I know maybe that shouldn't matter. Ultimately it all comes down to the liquid, and I guess the point is that in this particular instance, the liquid hasn't done it for me. Anyway, that is a lot of rambling. If you have anything you want to comment on, please comment on it. Please like the video or dislike it. Please subscribe. Please support the channel through the Buy Me a Coffee link. And I promise I will get back to Pinhooks again, and hopefully it will be a more positive review. But until that time, thank you very much for watching. Have a good night, and I probably should script these a lot better, but there you go. Anyway, sláinte, have a good night, see you again.